up and through with my drawing. Being careful to taper that line. It's sitting down in through here, it's up a little high, it's curving now in through here as this kind of comes over it. Right in through here. We'll get that to come through, then it starts to sit down. And this might be a little high up and through here. I might take that down just a little bit. Take that off. And start to work that thickness right in through probably here. Feels a little bit more comfortable. And this starts to curve in and then downwards even further to get that antler. Sit it down a little bit better, more proper, I think. What it's giving me is in its viewpoint through here. Blow that off and away, or I can use my trusty brush too as well. So you'll have to change positions often to what's comfortable as you draw, since I'm right-handed. I use a certain amount of positioning too as well. So you can see this antler point is tilted back this way because we're kind of shooting for this movement in through in that direction. Okay, coming through in here, around. Working on that line, trying to make a beautiful line expression. Trying to make it feel like an antler and bony and round without using a whole lot of value, or really any, except for what the line's giving us. Right in through here it gets dark. This turn, see that turn? Right in through there it gets darker. Give a little contour line, cross contouring right in through here. It turns right in through here, just to give a sense of that turning that I talked about, just to give that roundness. And that's a little bit more arbitrary or self-made. I don't necessarily see that on the model. Coming through a few fine points in through here, light tips in through there. It fades into that, it can get a little darker. Fade that line in through there. You can continue to work over your line. Work that line through, and then we'll start to work out this antler here. Up and arched, and ends about right in through this tip here. And it comes to a nice tipped point. And then we can start to move over this this pointing through here, this high pointing through here. I can come through, then on down, and I can see where I'm going to have to adjust my antler. Can you see it in the back? As I come down, this gets thinner, and through here, and downward, and I've got this extra part in through here that I'm going to have to take off to make it really work the way I want to. So what I can do, you can see this point through here. So I'm going to come back and erase. It's a good time to show you the eraser shield. I'll show you that. So I can take it, lay it in this part here, and erase just the lines that I want to take out nice and cleanly without messing up those lines, if you will, if you want there. So that eraser shield's a nice tool, especially with this kind of really meticulous, low tight kind of drawing. So that cleans up that antler, I think, much better. Gets that into a better positioning, like I think it's like I want it for the most part. Through here, and then we can come down the back side, reconnect in through here, and come on down. And I'm going to take off some of this too as well. So I want this line to come through here, reconnect a little bit darker in through here, and then come through. And I'm going to take off just a little bit of this pointed through here, so I can take my eraser shield, put it through there, and just the parts that I want to take off, leave it exposed, and then use my eraser through the exposed part to take that off very nicely. And so that makes that a much better, I think, conclusive part of that antler to work with. So that was a good demo there for using that eraser shield. Okay, so we'll come in and finish this front tip of the antler. And through here. Right around in through here. And I like how this breaks up a little bit. I'm going to leave that. I like that. It's a little bit darker underneath through here. It's kind of a round ball. And this little joint here, almost like a long sort of vampire finger right in through here. So this kind of line, this kind of contour line where it's really meticulous and slow, you can use the palm method when you're sketching a little looser and gestural and make some really beautiful, fantastic, quicker contour line works too as well. So that I'll show you that in other lessons. That'll be kind of self-evident. Running through here a little bit. And then this tapers in. If you see that this curves in, this subform, the smaller form, as it lips underneath here, like so, comes to a head here with a darker area right in through there. So it's kind of tapered and it's curled in on itself, and it comes out and ends out right in through up in this direction. Right in through there. And you can give a little tick marks for some of the extra texture that's on there. And then right up underneath this curl, in through here, this can go a little darker where the light gets trapped under here by the darkness. There's no light that gets in, so it can't get in there. Light is kind of like water. It wants to go everywhere you want it, but you could trap it, seal it up a little bit. This goes underneath, like so. A little bit of extra turning through there. And lastly, I'll catch this little element right in through here, coming in. And then back through, and I think we've got our antler working for us. So I generally step back, take a measure of it, and I think it's working generally pretty well. Cut. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2. And now what I generally wind up doing is probably almost always is going back, and once I take a little bit of a measure of what I see, is I generally use my eraser to, again, to hover these lines a little bit more. So the more kind of broken lines, and I'll do that sometimes with my eraser, and I'll break them up a little bit just to give them even more variety. I've always been a little heavy-handed, and I think that still carries through in my demonstrations and professional work, and so I'm always thinking about how I can adjust through that a little bit to get even more variety. And so I like quite a bit of variety, and we want to make sure that we can get that. And in my case, I'll just dab a little bit, take out some of that line weight. It's a really, again, a wonderful tool. Either your wide eraser, in this case the kneaded eraser, is to use it in a way that's expressive. And in this case, just dabbing down some of the line to give even more line weight and expression. Because we want to look here first. Here's where our focal point is. We always want to come back to it in our drawing further and further. And the more I emphasize that, the better. And I think for my focal point rendering, I'll probably do a little tonal value in here and here. And that'll be right at the very finish of this project. So as you continue on, we'll start to come in here and work through this lapel, this breastplate, a little bit further. And let's go back to what I talked about earlier, in that we want to separate this breastplate into two forms first. And so, because it's a pectoral chest, we're working off human anatomy in that sense. It doesn't look like it, but in reality, if we come down here, where I'm going to start out is this area right here, because that tells me about the structure of the form, less about the detail. I don't even see the detail. I mean, I see it tangentially, if that's the right word. Again, don't let me be your vocabulary guide or your mathematician. That would not be good. But what I'm trying to say is that I see the detail, but I don't draw. I delay all that information and get the structure and the form first. So in through here, it's that shadow that's emerging. We're making it through here. Yep, and through here, this flips over just a little bit. And we'll come down and up. And then we'll start to get its structural component through here. And then I'm following that shadow, form shadow pattern. Remember, our light source is to the right. Falling down the figure so the major dominant shadow shapes are to the left. And up and through. Just fades and breaks a little bit. And through here. I'm going to give some arbitrary contouring lines. And we're going to come back up here. Through here. around, and through, and it's going to catch back up. Get a little bit darker. All this is in kind of an applied shadow where the intensity of the spotlight is on the head. And so this is not quite as dark, and it's not quite frankly, as contrasty as here. And so that's where we want that major contrast. And there's a reason why. That's the focal point. The light does it, and also the detail of the head. And the focal point of the head is generally the face. And the focal point of the face is generally the eyes. And so on. Come down and we start to merge through here. I'll tell you a secret too about all this detail. I see it in clumps, in larger, grander, grander but larger shapes. And I generally just work with those. I don't get to the minutiae as much. It's not as important to me. So I downplay some of all that meticulous detail in order to bring about even more resolution in the focal point. So you can see where we've separated this form now. Of course, we have all this detail in the chest plate here. I'm going to bring a few lines that are arbitrary, contour lines, contour marks, but also I'm seeing some of the detail where can fill in a little bit later, but I want to keep it coming up this chest plate into here. And as such, start to work through around the collar. The collar will disappear into that shadow since it's so dark. And I'll pick it back up in here. So you can go over that line and see it coming back up and emerging. They get closer together and they get clumped together, which makes kind of a darker implication. You don't even have to make it that dark because they get so close together that they start to get a darker, grayer overall kind of tone. Again, there's something liberating and kind of special about just working in contour line. You don't have to think about color shifts and warmth and coolness of tone and edges, even though you really see it and you are involving yourself into it. There's only one simple resolution. But then again, it's not as fancy, right, as jazzy as a full value drawing or painting. All right, so we have underneath here. If I can finish this out, where it's kind of resting down through. It's got this little secondary shadow form emerging. And up and over. So this tends to connect and disappear up to where this ellipse is. This whole thing is kind of a cylindrical base. Up and through here. Underneath, like so, and then we can start to negotiate this cylindrical pedestal that the statue is on. So we can work in through here, around, and so this can become difficult. It's a simple form, but it's an ellipse and a cylinder in perspective as it comes downward. So you always want to keep that in mind when you're drawing these simple forms. And we've got this cast shadow that comes across here. Downward, like so. And then it curls and emerges as casting a shadow onto the form itself in through here, or to the pedestal itself. And underneath, kind of back up and around. And it's hard to see into there. And this curls around through. And the shadow merges and kind of falls away, like so. There we go. And so now we can start to bring this pedestal down a little bit. So this has got this lipped edge here and, you know, kind of over here. It's kind of oblong a little bit. It starts to get a weird kind of pointy thing going on, sort of right here. See how it's kind of pointy? Sort of merges underneath. There's kind of a soft shadow here. And it gets that lip underneath. And it turns up and over and through here. Strange kind of comes to this hexagonal kind of point. This way I see it, at least, right into there. I don't know if you do or not. And then it starts to get thinner over here and kind of tapers downward. So sometimes I'll make that, see that long contour line I'm working with, and it's kind of a medium line, it's the same width, and then I'll come back over and I'll give it a little bit more variation, even though it's going to be darker and thicker, especially underneath. It blips in through there. And it can get a little bit lighter. It kind of curls a little bit right in through there. And it fades into this form shadow. There. And the line work under through here. So that's a complex area. This edge is pretty strong. This is a stronger edge of cast shadow. And then there's a form shadow underneath it that's got a lighter line here and then across. And it's probably the best you can do without using value to give it that feeling of sensation of light and shadow. Remember, there are limitations always to using contour line. That's kind of the point, is to describe the natural world in a limited tool usage. There we go. So I'll come down here and I'll start to see this curve of the outside of the pedestal here. Curl that in a little bit further. Take my eraser. Curl that angle, just let it kiss up against that just a little bit more. And then through here. Kiss up against that. And so we kind of have this soft transition this side. I'll start to bring a lighter, medium lightweight line under here and over, and it kind of gets into a point, a little bit darker here. It gets into a point. And it moves over in this direction, like so. And then we can move down the edge of the pedestal here. And I really don't like this line running through there. I'm going to take that out. It's a little too blunt. fade this off just a little bit in here and then come down the way it ended. I like that line better. That works. And I'll start to bring this over. So fast forward and change, alter, take it through different stages as you're watching, if you're learning. And can find areas that you want conclusion on or that you find more interesting than others. But I'm going to take you through the entire journey here. And we're going to find this elliptical base pedestal here. This ridge comes across and down here. And then it makes its final ridge coming across and over, which will be here and around and over. Right in through here. So I'm going to work on this ellipse in through here, and it's not a perfect one. You can kind of tell it's rough, kind of a faux marble look. It's not too terribly dark, but it's a little bit thicker. So I'll keep it subdued on the inside and through here. And these will start to not flatten, but turn through this way a little bit, just slightly, and over. And we can build our or put our plastic piping on the top of that a little bit later. Draw through that. Draw generally the back of it first, but not always, or back to front. We didn't do that always. So I'll bring this around down to the end through here. It's a medium weighted or thick line, medium thickness, and it's got a little extra going on up and through here. I just want to get the feeling of this turning a little bit. I'll put some arbitrary contour lines just to get that feeling to work together, and I'm pretty close there. And then I can push this a little bit darker. Here. Nice and dark where it touches, especially when that really ends in through there. Then we can start to bring this over, and it lightens up a little bit. Then it gets darker running through there. Here, and it lightens up. And then takes on a kind of a medium weighting through, maybe just a little bit darker than the top, or the inside part of it. Come across it through here. And catch this lip underneath. Get a little bit darker through there, and then go a little bit lighter. Ending up over and through there. The trick is variation. Lots of variation. You can see tons of it as it works through the drawing. And so lastly, I'm going to come over here, or not lastly, but I'll come over and start to catch some areas over here and work this area a little bit further and show you that as well. So kind of fold underneath through here. So remember, I missed this a little bit. I missed this angle a little bit, but it's so minor that I'm not gonna worry about it. So I'm going to work this fold. You can see this fold, how it goes in this direction, right? And then comes back up and around and through. It's very unimportant, but I want to include it in our composition because it's got a little cast shadow that it makes too, off up and through here. This goes around. It's a real kind of strong shadow that starts to emerge up and through here. That's made from the fold of that cloth underneath. And so it kind of grabs up to it, then it starts to almost touch right into it, about right in through here. So I want to keep this a little softer, less detailed, so my line is not going to be truly incised. And that's why I like to keep my pencil tip a little less sharp, because I can move it around and find the sharpness on it. That's a little tricky. And my pencil is getting to the point where it does need to be sharpened, but for this part of the drawing it's perfect because it's a little bit dull, and I want that duller, softer, lighter line to work for me. And I'm just going to let this fade off a little bit through here. Let it come on down. We can see this emerging here, this fold. It starts to turn and do this, coming through. It kind of comes slightly downward. I'm going to darken it up a little bit. I'm going to leave this top line a little lighter than the bottom. It's a little lighter. It's receiving a little bit of light, mostly reflected through here. And we'll get underneath that fold, coming through, merging. Make this darker so I can really evaluate what I have to do here, and just a few little lines, I think, right in through here for a secondary fold that kind of come down and up and over. To give that kind of folding expression right in through there. Don't want to go too dark or too thick, and I can always lighten it up with my kneaded eraser and then darken it up again if it's too light. You can really bounce this light, this line work to your advantage and really manipulate. You don't have to be satisfied with what you have. You can constantly change. It's pretty exciting that way. Okay, so I've got that fold in the background. That seems to feel like it's fading nicely, or it fits nicely behind there, just to maybe just a little bit down, just slightly in through there. Okay, cut. Okay, recording at 5, 4, 3, 2. All right, so I'll take a look now, working this drawing, and I want to take a look at the lapel part of. Okay, cut that. Okay. Yeah, let's go here. View 4. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2. All right, so I want to go into more detail in through here in the chest plate of the soldier, of the Caesar figure. And there's a couple of strategies we can use when you're thinking to break this down a little bit to help you out. You might feel overwhelmed about the detail, and it is quite a lot of information, but what you can consider is breaking up into sections. So I already broke up the three-dimensional aspect of it into the pectoral, chest, sternal region, separated into two spots, and that's one thing that will help in your, hopefully in your thinking. And the other is to take it in larger sections, like we have the collar, but then we also see how we have this area through here, this kind of shouldering area separation, and you get a little bit of it over here. So that can help a little bit in your process. You have a quadrant here, if you will, and a quadrant here, if you will, which gives us all this. And then you can group each one of these into an individual section to make it a little bit easier. So let me see if I can demonstrate and make this a little bit more manageable to you along the way on your drawing journey here. Drawing this, but really anything that you're drawing in the future. So we can take this area here, and I can start to say, okay, well, this runs down through. You could even quick sketch it if you want. You could come around and say, okay, just kind of a looping around and through there. It gets you there, just gives you that direction. And then we could start to run our contour line across it and over and through. So we get this top piece in through here, and this cascades, comes down very nicely and through. This is always moving and turning, so we're always trying to think three-dimensionally in my drawing, where I can turn, where I can manipulate the line weight to make it feel as three-dimensional as I can, given the limitations of the device that we're using to draw with, which is just essentially graphite. All right, so we're coming down this section through here. Gets a little bit darker as it comes down in this region through here, and you're kind of drawing the shadow and a little bit of that divot coming through. You get this, and you've got this shadow line in between it here, as these two areas are humped over and they kind of come into a crevasse in the middle a little bit. This tends to come down and through this shadow and through here. You don't have to get lost in detail. Matter of fact, you can be very judicious about how much detail. You do need some, but you don't have to have, I don't think, everything there. It doesn't have to be, 4,000 pixels in terms of your, just to give you a kind of a visual reference of all the detail. Matter of fact, eliminating makes it different from a photograph or real life. It makes it a drawing. which can be very, I think, very fun. Alright, so now we've got these wonderful little devices coming across, these little horizontal bars that come across, so we can take those on now with confidence. And I'm just going to hit some of these shadowed areas and through here. Tapering off. They're not very dark, nor are they very light. They're in that middle gray section, so the line weight stays relatively the same and kind of medium. And then you come down a little bit and you start to get this next bar. The top seems to be lighter line. And through here it comes down, curls down a little bit, right? And then you get this bottom line here that gets darker. It turns downward and through here. And so as it turns down, it gets a little darker. So this can be a thicker line, and you can vary it, turn it down a little bit, give it a little arbitrary kind of cross contouring. Kind of come down. And so a lighter touch in a heavier line, or a lighter, darker line too as well, can give you that feeling. And we can come on down. We've got another one, and another one, two more to do in through here. So it gives us a powerful kind of device to give us more detail, so we can take this in sections. So I'm not looking at all to get all that right now. I'm looking to get this section, and then I'll go on to maybe the next shoulder section, and then work this area, and just think about what's the largest shape, what's the largest form, and break it down. Where's my light source coming from? Thick lines versus thin lines versus broken lines, and it becomes really manageable. You'd be surprised at how you can start to break this material down. Here we go. 2, 3, okay. Let me give it some contouring in this direction. And then one more down and through here. A little darker on top. And then we're coming through, and again, you get this sort of turning downwards. So I put a little bit of arbitrary contour lining on top of that, and that helps. And then we can finish this kind of triangular shape down and through here. It's even a little bit darker. And so we start to run this section and kind of finish out that section a little bit. So let's go on, and we'll move on to the other side. So if you wanted to, you could come through here. And a lot of students tell me, what happens about when I draw inside a shadow? Well, what I tell them is when you start to demarcate a shadow, just because it's dark here, what's inside, there's not a lot of contrast. So that can be very muted in terms of the thickness of line. You don't want to make it too dark in through here, and just because there's more contrast out here as we're coming across. So I'll come across a little bit where that light part of that curve of the chest plate is, and through here. And then there's a thicker line to show, maybe a couple lines actually to show that. And then we get into that bone a little bit. So I'll kind of recapture the quick sketch part, go back to the palm method, capture that, and through here, that kind of moves in that direction. And then we'll kind of move over and through. So you kind of see where that's going to come out and formulate. So you have an idea about that. Don't forget to use something to help keep your hand off of your drawing, especially since you spend so much time on it. You certainly want that to show through. You want these to be smudged. So find a piece of paper, or in my case, a piece of plexiglass from my triangle. So now we can come up here and catch this. And catch down. And I'm not going to put much detail into the shadow because I don't want much contrast. But if I do, most of this line weight is going to be lighter and muted. Why? Because there's not a lot of contrast in the darkness. So that can be the same thing as something with less contrast in the light. But since we've got a demarcated dark line for our cast shadow, it tells our viewer that is in shadow, just like this cast shadow that I threw in here. I took the liberty of kind of moving on off camera just a little bit to save time. I'll do that a little bit at a time. But I definitely wanted to show all of you the complexities of this chest plate that can be broken down a little bit further. So we have this over here. We can catch a little bit of that detail. And then moving down through here. Maybe one more coloring. And coming through over. Okay. And then the next thing I could do is start to take this in different sections. Again, like I talked about, is take this section through here and just start to draw, again, what you see. So this kind of curve moves down. I'll quick sketch it out for you. This moves in this direction over. So we're trying to get the 3D feel of it. If it's carved into the material, right? And then there's a kind of a circular oval forming through here, a little curved kind of form. It's some kind of maybe birds that we're seeing, and then this overturn of this curve forming through here, and then you've already got a basis for it. So you can take it one section at a time. It might be easier for you to manage, or you could quick sketch it all in if you want. I think I'll do it one section at a time so you can see, those of you that are a little bit less experienced in drawing as you're learning a craft on your own, or if you're in my class, or wherever your experience level is, you can see that. So we can start to move here. Remember, the light source is coming from the top right, so shadows will be more from the bottom and left, always opposite the light source. So the heaviest line work will be bottom left and through here. Moving up and through and top. Lighter. Couple of lines in through here. It's kind of a face. Just give an indication of it. I don't want to get too bogged down. And then I'll start to say, okay, this is in the light. It's kind of overhead. This gets a little bit darker. It's turning away. Then we have this curve. And through here. We'll go a little bit darker with that line as it turns away. This comes through in here. It just becomes kind of a design problem with understanding that the variety of line weight helps to show off the light positioning too there. So these are all mostly in shadow. We can catch that a little bit. We start to get a more extravagant feel for the decoration of this armory, or armor. This moves over. It's kind of like a little neck. It's like a little griffin or firebird or some kind of bird form as it moves down. Like a little claw here. It's fairly muted. And So I'm going to try to catch the outside of it coming down here. So it moves in this direction and catch its three-dimensionality. This is all mostly cast shadow and shadow from the form shadow and cast shadow, and it gets darkest right where this cast shadow is. And through here, it wants to curl around, so it's like a 3D ribbon. Moving through, and over through here, then it gets blocked into kind of a 3D form. Because it's a ridge, it's got a ridge. So there's the top. It's moving around and through here. And then we have a little three-dimensional peak coming through. And then we get this extra ridge coming down. Then we go back into this kind of circular decoration, and through here we kind of naming them. Name of the game is variety. Knowing where the shadow falls, the light source is, helps it make it look a little bit more three-dimensional. Anytime you see a dark area, it's going to be shadow. So you know this rounded area, this is a shadow here because it's being cast. It's like a crater, so it's a hole. So it means the bottom side is in light, but then we have an extra side over here that has ridges that catches the cast shadow. And so you can tell all this seems to be in shadow, even though it comes just from contour line. And that gives you that variety. It takes a little bit more thinking in the beginning, but later on it just becomes second nature when you draw. You think about it, but you don't think. It's not as hard. It's not as taxing on you. You just kind of get it. And once you get it, it's great. You just sort of keep on trucking. But if you're not, and that's why we're here, is to help you see these attributes so you can get it. This curves around, gets kind of organic on through. A little darker in through here. Cut out holes. And we'll bring up this kind of body, and there's a little leg here. Of some sort or another. These are wings. Griffin wing. Like so, so to speak. Carve into that dark right in through there, and then we'll kind of get this filled in. Go darker on this leg, push that over, and it takes on more light on this side. And almost disappear that all the way through, and then come back up to the forearm leg. Like so. And then we're starting to break down, again, this form even further. So now we're starting to tell an even deeper story about the detail on this structure. So where do you want to go next? Well, ask yourself. So maybe I would take into effect or account this bone's got to come through, so we've got to handle that in a little bit. But then we can take into effect maybe, okay, we can start to kind of quick sketch in, this shape. There's kind of a man holding, looks like some kind of beast. It's going to be mythological figures like Poseidon. And so I'm just going to name it into shapes. Through here, holding up something, and through here. and just trying to get the feel of the figuration and the shapes. Sometimes I see it as, you know, something I can recognize, and other times I just see it as shapes and stuff. Like drawing textured ice cream or just circles and dots and squares, and I just got to be careful. I see what they are now. They're horses. Okay, so they kind of, there's like a horse. Go down a horse, maybe or 3 horses, and then this figure here is lifting up something. So now I can kind of get it. Can kind of tease your eye. Either way, it really wouldn't matter. It would come out if you're getting all the shapes right. So you can kind of get this horsey figure down. And this up and through here. And this will be a cast shadow. So that's the power of a little bit of a quick sketch to help you out with that. Or you can just do it directly. Either way. And their legs coming through here. On through, and then the body coming down. Of the hooves, and then some decoration down and through. Another bird wing maybe. So we'll take on that if you want. So we'll start to look at this space through here. You can see this going a little darker. We'll start to get this tail. And this, whatever this is, head. It's kind of just an oval. You can even simplify it more than that, what you're looking at. We don't want this to be more dominant than the head. But we have a device for the head. We can use a focal point rendering. That helps too. But what if you couldn't? Then you'd have to be careful. But you just want to give the quality that there's kind of this figurative activity going on within the arm plate. So this comes down. And there's probably more space between here. I could bring this down a little bit lower. Actually, a little bit more. So we'll take that, we'll erase that out. And come down with that, some kind of tail. Could leave even more space, but that's okay. I'm not worried about it. It's not that important. If it was really that important, I'd change it. So don't worry about it if that happens to you. Now, if you get your eyes and ears, if the ear's way down here to the relationship to the head, you've got to change that. But this is so minor that it's not important. Now we're getting the chest to here. It's a little bit in shadow. This is a little bit lighter to this arm. And you could push your line weight a little bit darker in through here. It's kind of a shadow. We could catch that outline of it through there. So this flows on down through here, these horse heads. Start to think about this curve coming through. So all this is on the left, a little bit lower because it's in shadow. So I tend to work with those shadows first, which help me to help establish the shape pattern of it to get a little bit more clear of what's going on. Through here, through. It's kind of a neck in through here, and then lightly get a little bit more of the detail of the heads. Especially this one, is it's really kind of the one in supposedly in front here. So we have this as a circle, oval type carving. So the kind of the cartoony sort of, well, not cartoon, stylized horse, you could say, through there.